right. Comment here coming in from Clay about Jovantae Barnes. Seems to have more explosiveness than the other backs. What are your expectations for him? We did address the running backs, but anything there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I expect as he continues to work, I think he'll get certainly some more opportunities in competitive games. Obviously, it was early on in the obviously first game of the season, and he got there and kind of garbage time situations. But yeah, I think it'll be one of those things that he'll continue to get more and more carries, and they'll put more on him to see what he can produce for this team. But yeah, I think always the question with younger kids is pass protection. How well is he able to do it in the pass blocking situation? But I think moving forward, I think he at least was able to show the team what he could do in obviously a real live game, and then yeah, I think he'll continue to get more carries as the season goes on for sure.
Matt and others, also keep in mind, if you're just joining us here, we're almost wrapped up, but keep it right here. Catch what you missed, the video posts, and you go back and watch what you weren't able to catch the first time around. I did a rundown. I have yet to produce the video, but I went through each conference and just the performance over the weekend. So looking at the Big 12, you've got basically wins across the board, except West Virginia went to Pitt. I don't think it's a black mark on the conference by any stretch of the imagination. That game went right down to the wire. West Virginia was probably playing a bit up in class if you're comparing where the two teams sit in their respective conferences. So I think that was actually probably a good performance for the Big 12. And otherwise, the conference just pretty much held serve, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no, to your point, Mark, there's no real surprises. West Virginia kind of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, so to speak. Had a lot of control. I mean, and you kind of felt bad for West Virginia and just the manner in which they lost that game, just a drop. On that one pass, and ended up being a pick six there. But yeah, I think a couple of things kind of came out just were noteworthy for me. A little bit surprised defensively that Oklahoma State struggled the way that they did in the back end, particularly in the second half, giving up 29 points to Central Michigan, over 400, almost 450 yards through the air. I think we kind of knew with what Oklahoma State lost in the back half of the secondary, it would be a little bit more of a learning curve, but didn't really think it would happen that quick with that team early on. I think TCU, Colorado might be one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country this year, but TCU kind of sleptwalked through that game a little bit and still won the game by 25 points. I know that Chandler Morris got hurt a little bit, but still had no problem whatsoever with Colorado. And I think the one thing that's probably going to have some eye rolls here, but I thought watching Kansas, you could tell that they're more athletic of a team than they've been in the past. Typically, I know it was an FCS opponent, but typically, over the last 5 years, even FCS opponents, they've really had to struggle. They've had to, scratch and claw to win those games. And on Friday, they beat Tennessee Tech 56-10. They were actually leading 56-3 before Tennessee Tech scored a late touchdown, and they dominated that game. So, I think Kansas is going to continue to be better. I think it's a very interesting week 2 game against West Virginia to see where they're at early on. Both teams, I think, how does West Virginia rebound from that heartbreaking loss, and where is Kansas at there? So I think that'll be interesting to watch for next week as well.
So noted on the banner, 9-1 for the Big 12, pretty much just holding serve against inferior opponents. So no big impressive wins. There was a Power 5 win, as Jason noted, but we could probably name off 25 Group of 5 teams that would be better than Colorado. So no great accomplishment there. But this week, okay, I don't know outside of Austin, Texas, or the state of Texas that many people expect the Longhorns to beat Alabama. So that's going to be one of those deals where, at least from my perspective, if Texas is competitive in that game, I will notch it as a good mark for Texas, a plus for the conference, all of that. I do not in any way expect Texas to beat Alabama. There are some other intriguing games here. Missouri and Kansas State playing in Manhattan, an interesting SEC Big 12 matchup that seems to be pretty even. I would give the lean to Kansas State there. Houston, Texas Tech. Houston had that really good season last year. 12-1. Their only loss was to Texas Tech in the regular season before they lost to Cincinnati in the conference championship game. So those two get back together. Iowa State at Iowa. Cyclones have lost 7 consecutive games to Iowa. If you didn't catch this score, 7-3, Iowa over South Dakota State. The 7 came via 2 safeties and a field goal. And then the other one's Baylor BYU. That's an intriguing game for sure. With Baylor scheduling a decent non-conference opponent for the 2nd consecutive year. So I'll give them some accolades.
Yeah, no, it's a really good week.
Yeah.
For the Big 12 out of conference, and my gosh, how impressive it was. I mean, I know it was Utah State, but they were a 10-win team a year ago, won the Mountain West, and they made them look like an FCS opponent. Just didn't score a point, and I think they had less than 175 yards of total offense. So, they luckily for Alabama, they got through the rebuilding year last year, and they look to be much stronger, at least defensively. So I think Texas, with their young offensive line, young quarterback, going to have a lot of problems, blocking those guys up front. Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, those guys. And then, you've got a lot of intriguing matchups, like you mentioned, Missouri, Kansas State, Houston, Texas Tech. But I think BYU Baylor is the most intriguing one for me. BYU has a chance to be this year's Cincinnati. I don't know that they can make it to a playoff spot, but I think they have probably they're the strongest, I think, in my opinion, at least early on, non-Power 5 team, and so they get an opportunity to host Baylor. Both of those teams look pretty impressive last year, although Baylor did it against FCS Albany, but 169-10, and then BYU, as you mentioned, they kind of handled that game against USF for the most, for the entire game. So I think that'll be very, very interesting to end the day there as well. But yeah, tons of, and we didn't even mention Arizona State, Oklahoma State. So tons of intriguing matchups in the Big 12 this week.
Yeah, as Matt mentions, Matt, to be clear, I was saying if Texas can be competitive. Do I expect them to be competitive? Even though, again, I always smirk and chuckle when I start to talk about Texas, just the best collection of athletes and talent in the nation, where basically none of those individual athletes and the team collectively has accomplished anything. I can't think of another team in the nation like it. They don't know success. None of those athletes know anything about success. They haven't proven anything. They're all really talented. And I'm not taking away from guys like Xavier Worthy as an individual. He's been tremendous. Marshawn Overshawn, those guys are tremendous players. So I don't want to take away from what they've done on the field. But I mean, from a scoreboard success standpoint, nobody's accomplished anything. And they are playing the very top of the line gold standard. And so, man, I can't imagine it's going to be an Oregon Georgia score, but I almost have that kind of feeling that it's going to go in that direction. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I think the score was a little bit, they beat Louisiana Monroe 52-10, and I think the score was a little bit misleading. They only racked, they were less than 400 yards total offense, and they were kind of up and down. Didn't run the ball extremely well. So yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they can, if they can move the ball. I mean, I think if they score 14 points, I mean, they could consider that, certainly consider that a victory against that defense.